Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inclusive Collective, where we share stories and learnings from inclusive people, organizations, and innovation. I'm your co-host, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in DE&I and people analytics. And I am joined by Nadia Butt, an organizational development and belonging strategist. Nadia, welcome. So great to see you. What's going on?
Same. Nothing. What's going on with you, Rob? How's your week going?
Going great. I was going to ask you, and I've brought this up before, but there's been a little bit of a change. So I wanted to check in with you. Have you listened to the show recently? I was listening to our show in my car.
Okay. Do you not normally listen to our show?
No, I listen to the show when we do as we edit it, but I don't typically listen to it in the car. And it just kind of came up in terms of the podcast queue. And so the ads, have you heard our ads lately?
I mean, yes, but I don't pay attention to them. So yes and no. I probably should. So why?
Okay, here's what's happening on our ads. Okay. Mostly in Spanish, which is great. I'm excited about that. Yeah. And then two, a lot of Botox ads. So I was just like, so as I'm listening to them, I'm like, oh no, are they on to me?
Are they on to me? That's what I was thinking.
So this is, but I'm kind of actually proud. Like, this is our demographic: Botox and Spanish speaking.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Of all the audience I could have had, I'm totally in.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Excellent. So what's happening this week on the show, Nadia?
Yeah, so this week on Inclusive Collective, we'll be talking to filmmaker and comedian Aizzah Fatima. We'll also discuss Trump judges and the Fearless Fund and CEO courage. And later we'll be ranting about mandatory back to work and raving about John. I can never say can't enunciate his name. Help me out.
Leguizamo.
Did I say it right? Leguizamo.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Show on Latino cultures in the U.S., which I'm really excited to hear about. So that's what we got going on this week.
Awesome. Well, let's first get to our segment, which people know as the Deets. You ready?
I'm ready. Always. Yep.
All right. Let's talk about the Fearless Fund. This is an update on something that is super important in the DE&I world. As of last week, a panel of 3 appellate judges in Georgia blocked the Fearless Fund. That's right. This is the all-female, I think all-black female venture capital fund there in Atlanta. The judges blocked it from awarding a grant to Black women entrepreneurs. 2 Trump-appointed judges sided with the American Alliance for Equal Rights. That's the group that backed the lawsuits that overturned affirmative action in college admissions.
At Harvard, right?
Yeah. At Harvard in North Carolina. Yeah. And then they said that the grants were racially exclusionary. So the judges said that a venture capital fund earmark. So stop
for
a second here.
Did you hear me sigh? Yeah. Sorry, I just breathed really deeply because I was like,
Nadia, your thoughts.
I mean, my thoughts. I mean, I'll keep it short, but like this, 2 Trump elected judges. This is a result of electing a really terrible human being into office with like really malicious values. So it's a shame because I think we're not understanding like the reason why this organization, like the Fearless Fund, was put into place, right? To really elevate historically marginalized, minoritized groups of people in terms of folks who receive funding. And so, to claim like reverse racism or whatever is just really, it's sad. So what I would say is like, let's pay attention because we have an election coming up and in 2024, and your vote is really important, and who we vote for has really severe ramifications down the road as it relates to things like this. So
yeah, let me make you more angry.
Should I get off my soapbox?
Let me make you more angry just to talk about some of the logic that was used in this particular ruling, Nadia, because I find it just fascinating, right? So the judges said that a venture capital fund earmarking funds for Black women entrepreneurs probably violated the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which barred racial discrimination in contracts. So think about that for a second. 1866, think about the environment for newly freed slaves and what that law was designed to do. And then 150 years later, 2 actual appellate court judges equated that providing a $20,000 grant to Black women founders and the harm that they say that does to white people, presumably, they equated that with the conditions that Black people faced in 1866. And so this is just mind-blowing. It can't be, I don't think, an accurate interpretation of the law. Remember that only 1%.
Well, if it's written for and by the certain people, then yes, that's what we're saying, right? Like, this is systemic institutional change that we're looking to change, and it's just not happening.
Yeah. And I predicted this. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and you can always find a judge somewhere that will agree with you, and that's probably true on both conservative and liberal causes. And so I think that, obviously they know that if they can just get this to the Supreme Court, then they'll continue to chip away at affirmative action in corporations as well and private enterprise. So this is all happening. This is all, it's a slow moving train, but it is happening. And I think that there's really, you say you can vote, but it's a little too late in this particular case, and that that train's already left the station. So more to come, and I'm sure we'll come back to this over and over again over the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's a lot of harm there, and I don't expect you to answer this question, but I think one thing that's just like coming to my mind is like we've had so many other venture capitalists on our podcast, and I'm thinking of some of those folks that support, or their values are aligned to really supporting founders that have historically been marginalized or not had the opportunity to secure funding. And so like what happens with them? And that's a very scary situation. So I think we got to keep our eyes on this, and it's just something that came to my mind. So I'm thinking,
I mean, there are women focused funds, right? And so if race and gender cannot be used in college admissions, and then presumably that same thing would apply in terms of gender and gender identity in private enterprises. So a lot there. Gonna keep talking about it, but
Rob, way to start off this podcast episode super light and fun, huh?
Well, it's really important. It's really important to take smart approaches in terms of getting the things done that we want to accomplish going forward.
Agree. All right. Well, so my deed here is a brand that we all love is Patagonia. Would you agree to that?
I would agree. Yeah.
It's a good brand, aligned to its values. So this past week, Patagonia's CEO shared that fear stops companies from fighting back against anti-woke politicians. And so at the 2023 Fast Company Innovation Festival in late September, CEO Ryan Gellert shared his reasons why companies choose not to engage in the national kind of identity politics. And he equates it to fear. And then the second reasoning being that because companies get in trouble over politics. And we saw a lot of this, right? Like this past year, for example, with Bud Light, as you may recall, where they leveraged Dylan Mulvaney, a transgender social media star, to really market their brands and the pushback. And so we saw what companies, think of themselves as like contending with polarizing social politics. Like, to me, it's like, like, your thoughts before I dive in a little bit further.
Well, I mean, the only thought I had was, I think you mentioned leadership, and you and I both have worked in large corporations, right? Sure. And I always consider corporations are the places where courage goes to die, right? Right. So
yeah,
I would, the most courageous people I met inside those buildings did the worst in terms of how their career went inside those buildings.
Ended up leaving. Yeah.
And the people that I thought were absolute, the kind of people that went whatever direction the wind was blowing, they did quite well in those environments. So, and I think that inequality within these organizations is a big reason for that, right? So so that there's such a large discrepancy between what a CEO or an executives make versus the frontline worker. And so the rewards are exceptional as you go towards the top of a big corporation. So, the incentive is to not make waves. The higher you go, the less incentive you have to make waves because there's a lot on the line. And so, so you take that in a situation where you're getting a lot of feedback that says that your organization is too woke on Instagram or Twitter, and you get the numbers that say that sales are declining and that we might lose some money this quarter, right? So are you going to back down, Nadia? You absolutely are. 100%, 100 times out of 100. And so, so the one thing I would say is you're talking about Patagonia, and you specifically asked me to disagree with you on things. So I'm going to try to do that. But I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how brave the CEO of Patagonia is with a 90% white wealthy elite customer base to go
Oh,
out on a
customer
limb
base. Yeah, that's a good point.
and support liberal causes, right? And then you also sent me some stuff from the former CEO of Merck, who is retired. So the environment is quite a bit different than when he was CEO of Merck. And so I just think that it's really tough to be courageous when you're the captain of some of these ships that are very big and have very, very broad constituencies.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Like, when you consider your consumers, you consider your community, you consider the pushback that you might receive. And we need to have courageous leaders because, one, role modeling is everything, and there's such a power dynamic. So if you are able to leverage your stance, and as Ken Frazier, like the former CEO of Merck, had said, stand up and speak out. I think that speaks volumes, especially if we consider the new generation coming into the workforce, because that's what they're expecting. And so things
Absolutely.
are shifting. Like, I think we are really in interesting times because things are starting to shift socially, politically, in the workforce. Expectations, norms, accommodations are really being sought from this newer generation. And so yeah, we're just kind of observing it, you and I. We might be retired by the time we actually see something shift, but it'll be really interesting to observe, I think, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that the days of neutrality, I don't think you can be neutral. I think those things are over, right? And I think that corporations will have to pick a side, and it's going to get really intense for them in this election cycle for sure. That's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. Yeah. Fun, exciting.
Wild times.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Nadia. I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to take a short break, and we will be back with actress and comedian Aizzah Fatima. Stay tuned to Inclusive Collective.
Welcome back, folks. This week on Inclusive Collective Podcast, we welcome Aizzah Fatima. Aizzah is an award-winning filmmaker, actress, playwright, and comedian. Her feature film, Americanish, world premiered in 2021. The film has won 25 awards at festivals and has been acquired by Sony International for worldwide distribution in November 2023 with a theatrical run in October. It's out in theaters now. Aizzah has played recurring roles in Law & Order, has been on other shows like Blue Bloods, Mr. Robot, The Good Wife, just to name a few. She received her MFA in writing for film and TV from Emerson College and is a graduate of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She has been featured on NPR, Women's Hour, The Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and The New York Times. Welcome, Aizzah. So great to have you join us this week on Inclusive Collective.
Thank you so much for having me.
Aizzah, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for being with us. It's great to see you. Pleasure to meet you. So let's talk about Americanish. It's getting its theatrical release finally. And so congratulations, first of all. I want to talk about the journey of the film because it hasn't been entirely linear. So tell us about some of the ups and downs, the things that you've gone through and that it's taken to get to this moment for this film.
Yeah, so many, honestly. Like I've been working on this film for 10 years this year. So yeah, it's Americanish is and actually even started before then because it comes from a one-woman show, Dirty Pecky Lingerie. It's characters from that show, which I started writing in 2009, 2010. I performed it for the first time in 2011. And then in 2013, I had just come back from doing the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with the show. And I was playing in New York City at the Cherry Lane Theater. And this Egyptian-American filmmaker, Iman Zawahiri, was in the audience that night. She was just in town for her birthday and came in to see the show and then kind of approached me afterwards about possibly turning it into a feature film. And she and I had so much stuff in common. We liked the same kinds of films and kind of had this very similar vision for those kinds of stories we wanted to tell, always like with comedy first. And so, yeah, we kind of went down this journey of like working on the script together. And then it's taken all these years and so many trials and tribulations later. And, and it's great that the film has been picked up for distribution now with a major studio. It's very exciting. But also, just so people know, this is done super independently. We were actually rejected by name anybody, like any major studio, any
like investor.
or studios or like, or the ones we were like able to approach. Not that we approached all of them because we just didn't have access, to be honest. But like labs, film festivals, all of them, right? For various reasons, right? And so we kind of had to turn to the American Muslim community and be like, hey guys, give us money. And those of you who are from that community, that community does not believe in the arts or supporting the arts. So it's like kind of the hardest hurdle.
Sure. They don't, mostly because they don't want us to be in those professions, right? Like they're like, we don't understand.
Yeah,
you're
not a doctor or a lawyer or a finance person. Like, what's up? Like, what is this? So so it was kind of a bit of an uphill battle, and just took years and years and years trying to convince my own community to kind of fund this.
Was it intentional to try to seek funding from
I know it was intentional, and I think we just didn't know any better. It's sort of the hardest thing to do, I think. I don't know why we went that route. We just kind of knew people. It's like one thing would lead to another. We knew some people who early on promised a lot and then later like ghosted us completely. So it's just fundraising is really.
Do you want to name them here?
Yes, let's. I have a list. Let me take out my.
Do you have pictures as well? Because
my long list. You hear it? You hear us? These papers. This is my long list. No, and I have pictures. No, literally, we would meet like these like millionaires, and they'd be like. I remember sitting with this uncle, Desi uncle, in his office in like the UK. And at the end, I did this whole 1 hour long pitch. And he ran a foundation, by the way, definitely a millionaire, in a townhouse that he owned, where I met him on the top floor. And then he's like, I only give money to poor people. You don't look like poor people. He was like, I don't look like poor people.
You don't look
and
like
and that was it. And I was like, damn. I think it's interesting, like advocacy looks so different for a certain generation, like our parents' generation. They just thought that they should build mosques, and that's what they do. And they're like, that's how we're going to integrate. I don't even know if they were thinking about integrating, but they're like, that's how we're going to live our life. We're going to build mosques, And I think for us, like we think about Islamophobia in the world and how to kind of navigate that and how to really squash that. And it's like, I think for me, the answer is create stories, tell your own authentic stories if you are Muslim, and show us ourselves in all of our diversity. That's how you fight Islamophobia, because people just don't know what a Muslim is or what one looks like. So I think we need many, many stories out there by Muslims and about Muslims, right?
So actually I'm curious about kind of your like your background or elements or parts of yourself in Americanish, or do you find like your identity, like you trying to kind of put components of your identity into the film, and what did that look like? Could you elaborate?
I think we're always as writers putting bits of ourselves in everything we write, so I think for sure. And it's so interesting because the story is generational. So there's a younger character who's like 20 years old in college. There's an older sister who I play, who is a working woman and trying to climb up this corporate ladder, in a company that's very male dominated. And then there's a mom who's raised these two girls just like on her own in New York City. And then there's a cousin who's come over just to to marry a doctor. As one does.
Yeah.
I did that. So
you did that. Yeah. So I think definitely I find like as a writer, you put pieces of yourself in all of these characters. And I think one of the things that I obviously really relate to is like I worked in corporate America for a long time. My last job was at Google, working in tech. And so it took me so long. It actually took me writing this story to be like, oh, I was like all those years trying to climb up the corporate ladder that wasn't built for me ever. And it was such a struggle. And I think I've definitely taken some of that and put that into the film because that's like based on my experiences, right? And like I'm working not just at Google, but at other companies as well. We talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. And I feel like that's just in so many of these companies. It's just some nice words people use. I don't even know if they know what that means.
Yeah, no, I had a question about your experience there at Google, right? So we do talk about workplace culture on this show. So what was it about Google's culture that drove you so far away from the from mainstream corporate culture and into writing your own film?
Yeah, when I'm just a person. I want to leave the world a little bit better than I found it. I want to make a difference in my small, tiny little way. I want to affect change. And when I was at Google, I totally drank the Kool-Aid and bought into this idea that I was helping the world, And then at the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, I just help Google sell ads. That's what I do for a living, really, is what I'm doing, guys. Let's be real. I was like, but ad serving technologies, that was one of my main products that I worked on. And so, yeah, I don't know. It just, it was very frustrating. I think also like having been there for not really quite at the beginning, but sort of at the beginning. And just like seeing the culture change. I think when I first started, it was a very small, like, I can't remember now exactly, but I think I was like employee number 300 something in the New York office, and not that much further down overall worldwide. At that point, there weren't so many of the offices that exist today didn't even exist back then, because I remember we were trying to set up certain offices, like, and train those people up, like in the other teammates, like in UK and Ireland during my time there. And so anyway, it was like such a small company, truly felt like you were maybe making a difference and it was something bigger than just you. And then it became just a corporation. And it was just kind of like, I remember like sometimes going to my manager with ideas and be like, hey, I think like we could do this thing and it would like really help the team. And literally my manager would be like, just answer the emails. Just answer your emails. Like, what? I'm just like, that's your job. Just don't worry about this other bigger picture thing. And I have to say, you guys, it was a little bit backstabby. There were like people who were just literally to steal your ideas, pass them off as their own. Like, some of that is in the film, and it comes from my own lived experiences of like working in these spaces, especially like when you're working in tech as a woman. I think this just aren't that many women. You're constantly surrounded by men.
Yeah.
And it's a hostile, unfriendly kind of an environment.
I was going to ask Aizzah, so you had mentioned earlier, like you had gotten some, you went to some of these like Muslim uncles' homes and like trying to investors, like trying to secure capital and so forth. I'm curious. I talked to several Muslim Americans, particularly for my research that I'm doing right now on my dissertation that focus on the American Muslim experience in the kind of the workplace. And I'm curious from your perspective, because to me, like those uncles or like those people that have like the capital to support their community could show up as like sponsors or show up as like mentors, even in some capacity. I'm curious from your perspective, being a creative and being like in this filmmaking world, are there, have you experienced, sponsorship or mentorship in different capacities as you're trying to get this film kind of off the ground? You said you've been working on it for 10 years. So like, who's helped played a part in that kind of role?
I'll say some people who played like honestly a really major part in the end are men, to be honest. So I won't name names, but he is a VC person and he like funds tech stuff and other companies. And I remember when I was early on pitching, he's young, this, of course I've been pitching this thing for 10 years. So he was in his 30s when I was pitching stuff. It's been 10 years, guys. Anyway, but young for that time, he wasn't quite like an uncle age, right? So I remember he just like, he heard the pitch and he sat me down. He's like, listen, your pitch is shit. Like, what are you selling me? Like, where's your financial plan? And I was like, I don't know. It's art. He just like showed me like how people pitch him when they're pitching him tech companies and stuff. He's like, this is a financial plan. This is how you do it. He did all of that and just really just like told me how shit my plan was. And then later turned around and was like, okay, I'm going to write you a check for 10 grand. And when I said to him, I was like, hey, I know, sweet guy, very sweet guy. And I said, I was like, listen, that's our investment level kind of a thing. It's not just a donation. And he was just like, nope, I'm not going to invest. I believe in you as an artist. I'm going to donate this money. So he gave us a donation and insisted that he did not want to invest. So we don't owe it back to him. It just came and, it's for the film. So him, and then I have to say, and I will name a name because he's our EP, so you can just, it's Googleable. Mohanad Malice, who has been an incredible supporter and, has supported a lot of films, not just ours over the years. He had a BAFTA winner and Oscar nominated short film last year, a few years ago, sorry. That was a Palestinian British film. And he's had several other films over the years that he's supported from Muslim filmmakers and others as well. And him, I feel like he has really, in a way, inadvertently has been a mentor. I don't know if he means to be or not, but we are taking a lot of meetings with him, with other folks. And I'm just learning a lot from just watching him. He's somebody who's been in business and runs his own many, many companies. very, very successfully for decades, right? And yeah, so I feel like that's been a really big learning opportunity.
When you were first pitching the movie, like, so just, I'm maybe thinking about getting it on film festival programs, and you weren't having success,
Yeah.
and then you were having success. Was it just, what was the, I'm just curious of what
Yeah,
people were telling you in terms of what they didn't see in the film. And
yeah,
then,
no one tells you anything. You'll
no,
never get any feedback.
oh,
I think here's the thing. Festivals have a certain kind of agenda, right? They'll do, like, if you look at the history of a lot of festivals, especially
mhm.
Muslim content, it is like this woman was stoned to death by her family or community, or this woman ran away from her abusive father, right? They're so interested.
Yeah, it's like
They're
so
so
dramatic.
interested in that. So
Yeah.
I think our film definitely doesn't. It's like a comedy. It's a family comedy. It's a rom-com. Like you can't, even though I think it's a bit of an anti-rom-com because it puts women first and like, they're what they want for their lives before any man that they're chasing. So, it's interesting. But I think festivals kind of don't really necessarily program that unless it comes from a celebrity, right? So while we have some very well-known actors in the film, we don't quite have a huge celebrity level person. So that was one. I think another really interesting thing, we were editing this film for 3 years because we just like kept running out of money and running out of steam. I remember we edited a version. I didn't love it. I was like, I don't know, guys, but the director loved it. She was like, let's put this out into the world. We did, got rejected. Then COVID happened. We had to like kind of come up with more funds, open the edit, re-edit. And then, I don't know, it's weird. Sometimes you hit a certain moment in culturally, right? Because I feel like George Floyd happened, right? COVID happened, the lockdown happened. And coming out of all of that trauma, people wanted something a little bit more happy. And I will have to say it was our own community that gave us the platform. And, it was again still getting rejected a little bit, even after all of that happened. But then we got programmed. Our first festival was CAM Film Festival, which is the largest Asian festival in North America and has been around for like 25 some years. And we won the audience award there. And when that happened, it opened up so many other doors. And we were programmed at like a lot of sort of mainstream kind of, like Savannah Film Festival, Cincinnati International Film Festival, the Heartland Film Festival, where we won the Grand Jury Prize, and then a lot of like Asian film festivals, South Asian film festivals. So it just kind of became this. It was kind of exciting. I don't know. Something changed, and I'm guessing at what changed. That's all I can tell you.
And you attribute that more to people wanting to hear the happy story as opposed to them taking stock and saying, we'd like to have or feature different voices in terms of our storytellers.
I think it was a lot of it. I think it was that as well, because I think the world just changed so much, right? In that time. And we did re-edit, and I think the film is this edit has been re-edited and redone like 3 or 4 times in those like 3 years we kept re-editing. And so I think this may be the strongest version of this film that we've ever had. So that's one. The art itself improved over the time because we had so much time. And I think like the world changed and people's views changed, and they were like, I think people are definitely right now, especially they're like, oh yeah, let's hear the women's story. Let's hear Muslim women. Let's hear what they have to say. Look, it's 2023 and this is the first rom-com done by American Muslim women about American Muslim women. It's like never been done before.
Yeah. I'm so excited to watch it. I can't even tell
Thank
you.
you.
So excited. Aizzah, I have a question in terms of so the writer's strike has ended or coming to an end, and just curious about your thoughts because we're here, Rob and I kind of we do promote equitable and fair workplaces and work environments, and just curious like what that meant for you or for your colleagues in the industry.
Yeah, look, I mean, I 100% support the strikes. And, my other union, which is the actors union, is still on strike. So we're still not done with this. So yeah, I mean, we need to pay people what they deserve to be paid. If you're working, this has been explained. It's like you only need to make, you guys, it's like 20 some grand, right? That you need to make in order to get your health insurance through SAG. And working actors don't make that amount of money. It's ridiculous. It's like we have to hustle and have so many side jobs and barely be like a functional human to live in this world. And we can't. So those are the things we're fighting for, and I 100% support it.
So Aizzah, this film, so obviously a labor of love for many years. And so just tell us what's next. What are you working on? Where can we look for your next project?
I am working on this other project on the side. Actually, that kind of got launched into the world much after Americanish. It's called Muslim Girls DTF, but like
Mm-hmm.
discuss their faith, wink,
Yep.
wink. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Love it.
So we have a pilot that we've been trying to get out into the world. And then with the current strikes and all this stuff that's going on, we were kind of like, let's pivot into live shows. So all the women who worked on the show, a lot of us are also stand-up comics. So we were like, let's just do live shows because right now we can. So we just did our first one in August, and then it got accepted into the New York Comedy Festival this year. So November 4th. We're going to be doing our second live show at City Winery this year. And I'm super excited to just like put this out into the live show aspect, the stand-up stuff more out. And I think we're going to start taking it to other cities and touring with the show.
That is so fun and fantastic.
Thank you.
Congrats. So Aizzah, the theatrical release is in 3 cities, correct? You got New York, LA, and Phoenix. Is it
It's playing in
Phoenix,
a
Arizona?
bunch of different places in Arizona, actually. Yeah, and we're sort of in the process of adding in more cities. So just go to the Americanish Film website, which is just americanishfilm.com, and follow that theatrical page so you can know if it's going to come to one of your cities. But if not, then it's also going to be available on VOD pretty soon, shortly after our theatrical release.
Very
Awesome.
good. Well, Aizzah Fatima, thank you so much for joining us on Inclusive Collective this week. Congratulations and good luck with all the projects you got going on.
Thank you for having me.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back for our Con Reflections and Raves and Rants.
Welcome back to Inclusive Collective. We just finished chatting with Aizzah Fatima. Nadia, how fun is it to have a big movie star join us on Inclusive Collective?
It's so fun. I'm really excited to see her film Americanish. And like she mentioned on the podcast, it's right now in 3 major states. It's in California, New York, and Arizona. Perhaps it will be distributed across America. So I'm really excited to see it. I hope other folks will go see it. I'm particularly excited because what she mentioned in terms of representation, like I finally get to see someone like myself on screen, someone, who portrays like a American born Muslim, Pakistani person who kind of goes through the intricacies of growing up and life in America. So really cool.
Who falls in love.
Who falls in love.
Has a lot of romantic intrigue,
Yep.
That's
all of the above. What did you think?
I'm excited too. And I think we touched on it a little bit that it's just immigrant stories are American stories, right? And this is just a really, adds to the depth and breadth of what film can show in terms of, showing us who we are. And I'm really excited to see it. I think it looks like a funny film. She's a delightful person to hang out with. So I'm excited that it'll be streamed very broadly and we'll all be able to see it.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, it's that time for rants and raves.
All right. You're gonna rant. You're gonna kick us off.
I'm gonna kick us off because I'm ranting this week. Okay, so apparently there's a back to office war happening and people are not happy. So according to a KPMG report, an overwhelming majority of CEOs plan to lure employees back to the office with preferential treatment. So according to Fortune magazine, to get workers back to the office, 90% of the CEOs that were surveyed as part of that KPMG report plan to reward those who work in person with favorable assignments, raises, and promotions. And that approach may be key to attracting and retaining employees, apparently, which the CEOs surveyed and thousands of other organizations kind of also claimed, identified as their top operational priority to achieve company growth objectives through the next 3 years.
No?
Well, I initially read this article and I was like, I think they think they're doing a good thing. And by incentivizing behaviors like this, but I think we need to pause and reflect. Like, this is a great example of something where we need to pause and reflect
Mm.
because are we considering the employees who like sought employment during the pandemic because their accommodations and needs were being met because of work-life balance or because
Mhm.
of a disability perhaps, or their family needs? And so to reward based on the ability to be able to go back to work easily, it doesn't sit well with me. We're incentivizing perhaps for the wrong behavior.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know. I'm ranting because I'm just like, it didn't sit with me
At
well,
a
but let's see.
time, and don't forget, at a time in which 70,000 childcare providers may be not available or
Mhm.
going out of business based on the lack of government funding for childcare.
Right.
So
Right.
that's happened at the same time. I also always wanted to do the study, Nadia, of it seems to me that, that as the amount of an organization's downtown office space or real estate value goes up, the more likely they are to want their workers to work in that, right? So like that's a study that needs to, there's an inverse relationship in terms of how much people think that they need to be in the office versus the, or
Cost
there's
of
a
real estate.
high correlation between wanting to be in the office from a leader's perspective and downtown office space as well. So
I would
that's
agree.
a study that I want to, I'm pretty sure that exists.
I'm 100% sure that exists. And I don't want to conduct that study, but I would want to read that
People with
study.
more time than you and I should do that. So if you have any
Yeah.
listeners, please do that. All right. Well, thanks for that.
Sure.
And so very short rave from me. Nadia, have you seen Leguizamo Does America?
I have not, but I'm dying to hear about it. So tell me more.
So it's really good. I just caught this. So the actor, the longtime film and TV actor John Leguizamo, launched the show to highlight and explore Latino cultures in the US. It came out in April. I don't watch cable news channels anymore, Nadia, because I'm not that into self-immolation, right? So but I was on the couch the other day and my son and I started watching it, and it's just really, really good. So check it out on all of the NBC news channels. You can binge it during Hispanic or Latino Heritage Month. And I think you can catch it on, in a lot of different places, but really good.
Great.
Really highly, highly recommend.
Wow, look at this list of things to watch is just growing here, right? We have Americanish and Leguizamo Does America. Is that what it's called?
Leguizamo Does America. Terrible title, really good show. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty Hollywood around here. So, special announcements. I'll be speaking this week at the Northwest Public Employees Diversity Conference with Aparna Ray. That's on October 10th. Get your tickets. Wait, actually, you can't. It's invite only. So hopefully, if you are in the Portland area and you're attending, then I'll get to see you there. Come say hi. That is it, Nadia, for Inclusive Collective. Just a reminder that we are consultants. We actually do work. So if you are looking for D&I and workplace strategy consulting, problem solving, or training, you can reach Nadia at Nadia@Nas Consultants or Rob at Decanoconsulting.com. Inclusive Collective is a production of Rifelion Media and edited by the one and the only RMFA. We would love to hear from you, so send us your feedback at inclusivecollective@rifelion.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. On LinkedIn, be sure to connect with us because you can subscribe to the IC Monthly newsletter. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcast. Thanks again to our guest, Aizzah Fatima. We'll be back next week. Thanks, Nadia.
Thanks, Rob.
What